Hello, welcome to my talk. My name is Joseph Mbele. I am a Tanzanian. I teach here at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, in the English department. I've been here since 1991, and before that, I taught at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, my country. I have this tradition now of recording some videos about various topics that I find interesting. And these are rather informal talks. They're not meant to be very structured, or they're not meant to be academic lectures or things like that. And I'm speaking for myself. I do not represent any organization, any institution. I just want to talk with people, provoke some conversation, and I welcome everybody to write their comments. Below this video, there's a comments section, so we can have a conversation. And my topic today is about some issue that is very noticeable here in the USA, the issue of race, the issue of racism. Growing up in Tanzania or growing up in other countries in Africa, except South Africa, I would say, you develop a certain view of the world, a certain understanding of the world, and you basically don't pay a lot of attention to your skin color. The fact that you have this color, you know, some people say black, is not a very accurate description. We don't really think about it. Yep, just as we don't think about the fact that we have two legs. Yeah, we do have the two legs, but we are not preoccupied with thinking about those two legs. So when you come to the United States, you'll be very surprised how preoccupied people are with the issue of race. Oh yes, they are very, very preoccupied with race. Awareness of race and racial differences. I say this in my books, absolutely. For example, in this book here, Africans and Americans, Embracing Cultural Differences, I talk about this as something that's really strange to an African like me. If you are here in the USA, you'll be surprised. Just about every day, you know, there are some issues, some conversations, some problems connected with race. Conversations about racism, for example. Whereas in Africa, again, with the exception maybe of South Africa, people live their lives and do not really spend so much time thinking about, talking about, arguing over, you know, issues connected with race. This might be a generalization, but at least that's my experience growing up in Tanzania. And I say this in detail. I offer details in this book as a way of highlighting the difference between African and American culture. So, if you now come to the USA and you are from these African countries, and you have your own way of looking at reality, you have your own way of interpreting, reality, you have your own concepts. You'll be surprised how often Americans come up with a racial perspective on things. You'll be surprised how often and how readily they interpret interactions or problems, with a racial lens, or rather with a racial perspective. So, for example, if you have, let's say, a white person and a black person, they have a problem, misunderstandings, it's very likely, it's almost automatic that the Americans will see this as a racial issue. And it's very likely that the white person is going to be called racist. It's quite strange, if you're an African, to observe all these things. And I do say this in my writings. In this book, Chickens in the Bus, I have a whole essay titled Being African in America, in which I articulate some of these problematic issues, some of these very strange experiences of just observing people in this country. And yet, calling someone racist has very serious implications, because it's a very strong term. It's a very strong term. It really casts somebody in a very dark, shadow. And it's not something to be taken lightly. Yet people get called racist all the time. I think it's very unfortunate. As an African, I look at this and I understand that we are all human beings. That's the way I was taught growing up in Tanzania. We are all equal. We have problems, we have bad days. I can be friendly on a certain day and not so friendly on another day. I can be going through problems and I'm not going to be in a very good mood. And the same applies to people of all races, any race. But here in the USA, if you have, say, a workplace and you have a white person or some white persons, who are not friendly to the non-white people or to people in general, if they express that attitude, or they appear to express that attitude to a non-white person, they're very likely to be called racist. And I think it's really very unfortunate. I think it is very unfortunate. A human being is a human being, and that's my view. They can be in a good mood, they can be in a bad mood, they can be grumpy, and they have to be taken, that way, that they are just a human being going through difficulties, maybe. They might not even be racist, but that's not the way people are judged here in the USA. And it makes me very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. I think every human being deserves the same kind of leeway, you know, in terms of how they are judged. Africans come, as I've said, with their own way of interpreting reality. And so we have our own vocabulary, we have our own concepts. We interact with good people, we interact with bad people. Back in Africa, we interact with people who offend us. And we have names. We might say, this person is rude, this person is bad, this person is arrogant. We might be called, by the same names, when we are not behaving well. According to some other people, they might call us bad or rude or, any of those terms. But we bring those terms when we come here. When we come to the USA, we will encounter different kinds of people. We will see some people as good, some people as friendly, some people as unfriendly, some people as maybe rude. It's human. And those are the terms we will use. So-and-so is a difficult person, is a bad person. I don't think automatically we grab the term racist to describe these people. It's not in our nature, or it's not the way we were brought up. But when we then try to present this African, let me call it African perspective, we get misunderstood. African Americans, for example, get very impatient with us. They accuse us of being insensitive or ignorant or naive. And they really, really seriously want us to adopt, their concepts. It's very complicated. And I have been telling Africans who live in the USA to remember, they have the right to be Africans, and they shouldn't even be pressured to adopt, American concepts. No, they shouldn't be pressured. And in this book, Chickens in the Bus, in that chapter that I call Being African in America, I say categorically that Africans should not pretend to be African Americans. They should not pretend to be. And I quote an episode from the city of Rochester, here in Minnesota. There's a big city, Rochester, and there are many immigrants there, like in many cities, many Somalis in Rochester. So there was a report in a newspaper. I talk about that report here, or rather I cite it. There were problems in the schools, Somali kids, against, the white American kids. And the reporter was talking to these Somali parents. I am writing there that it appears the reporter just automatically assumed those parents would complain about racism. And then, what turned out to be the case was that those parents said there were problems of cultural differences. They did not use a racial lens in talking about, or articulating, what was going on. They saw it as a problem of cultural differences. And these are the kinds of things I want to highlight in my talks. These are the kinds of things I want to express in order to foreground, in order to present what I call an African perspective on conversations that are going on. Say here in the USA, people talk about diversity. Yes. And all that I see is Americans talking about Americans, Americans talking about the American experience, and they're using American terms, American perspectives, American concepts. And there's a big challenge there for Africans who are here, the challenge of being considered, naive. And yet we are not naive. We have our own experience, we have our own perspectives. And when I say experience, I mean experience with people who are not like us. As I say in my books, if it's a matter of experiences with white people, many Africans have their own experience. They come from a village in Africa, and they had maybe a white doctor, a white teacher, something like that. So they do have that experience, and it's what informs their understanding of white people. Yes, it's a very limited experience, but that's it. That's it. So it's a problem. I don't think I have, any serious advice to give in terms of, to what extent people should acquire, adopt, the American perspectives. It's a matter of choice, I guess, and people are free to choose, the things they want to say, the ways they want to talk about their reality. And Africans who are here in the USA have that right, and I am using my right to express my experience in the USA my own way, and I always want to claim that I'm presenting an African perspective. That's what you will see if you read my books, and I'm very pleased that I'm able to state my viewpoint. There's nobody to prevent me from doing that. Well, I hope I've highlighted the issue, maybe not in a very coherent way, but as I said at the beginning, these talks are very informal. They are not rehearsed. I just step out and record something and then post it. I want to come out as somebody speaking very naturally. So think about what I've said, comment on it. There's a room below this video. Feel free to write your comments there. Have a nice day.